Live from Studio H2 in the Current Affairs Boston headquarters. It's Current Affairs, your ears and now eyes, most eventful hour, and a little more than an hour, of politics and culture. We are doing a live show, or as live as we can via video in the middle of quarantine. If you saw us last time, we played some games with each other over the internet. That was fun, but now we're getting down to business. Now we're being serious. There will be no games. There will be no fun. We're going to discuss serious topics only, including certain Marxists that Nathan has opinions on.
Don't mention the Marxists.
They're
so
here.
Please start
like Bloody
messaging
Mary. You can't say their
us.
name. Just show up.
Yeah, if you say Marx's name 3 times, it just pops up. So before I tell you anything else, I need to tell you one thing, which is that we will have a segment at the end that exemplifies all of our values about democratic participation. And that means that people who are watching this and fans should tweet at Current Affairs, where Allegra will be monitoring that chat stream, and she will take your ideas and put them into existence, speak them into existence right here in front of you, in front of your very eyes. And so our last segment will be fan chosen. And so please choose something that's actually good. Things that are not good include discussions about Marxism. Also,
They're
MMT.
just gonna call on me to account for all of my sins.
This really exemplifies, democracy in action, where you're like, you're free to choose, but please pick something good.
But they never do. They never do. So,
That we have confidence.
tonight on the program, we have Allegra, who is our moderator for tonight.
Hello, everyone. I'm checking the chat and the Twitter, so if you post something really, really funny, I might say it out loud.
We have associate editor, Vanessa A.B.
Hello. Hi.
We have lieutenant editor. Is this your new position?
I
Brianna
think so.
Reddix.
Hi.
And Brianna's dog, Abby, is somewhere around.
You'll probably hear in the background.
We have managing and amusements editor, 2 editors in one person. Lyda Gold.
Hello. I'm here with my intern Trotsky, as you can see.
Trotsky, who's of course a paid intern because
Yes,
we're an ethical magazine.
He's paid in cuddles.
We have professor of economics, Rob Larson.
Evening or afternoon, wherever you are.
It's always evening in Current Affairs land.
Evening here.
We have me, your legal editor, Oren Imni, and your temporary host, and the editor and chief himself, Nathan J. Robinson. Tonight on the program, we are going to discuss a number of things. I will introduce the segments as they come. They will be exciting. They'll be full of vim and vigor. But first, we are going to have a 2-hour segment on why you should subscribe to Current Affairs. Current Affairs is one of the most wonderful magazines that has ever been put upon this earth. It has art. It had one of a current affair, a single affair, is one of many current affairs.
Yeah.
And so it is one of many of the good magazines.
That is not Current Affairs that is better than Current Affairs.
No, that's true. That's a fact.
That's just factual.
What about
Look, we're only speaking in facts here. Reddix?
highlights?
Highlights is good. Look, there are a number of good magazines. Nickelodeon magazine, great. Spy magazine, excellent.
They're all
Current Affairs, and Current Affairs is the only magazine that you can get shipped to you in a somewhat timely fashion, more or less, within a window of a number of months. But you will experience pure pleasure and joy. It is the magazine for moms. Lyda is drunk off of White Claw. This is gonna be a good
I'm mom
show.
drunk. Without children, I'm still mom drunk.
So please subscribe to the magazine. We are a small but wonderful publication. We have no advertisements. We need your support during this quarantine time. And frankly, you will be getting something priceless that you can treasure forever. After your loved ones are gone, Current Affairs will still be there. Current affairs will survive through COVID, unlike anyone listening to this podcast.
Currentaffairs.org/subscribe.
Subscribe or die. I guess.
Subscribe or die. Well, it could be subscribe and die.
Subscribe
but
and
nonetheless,
die. We
you
don't
will
care.
have
Just
subscribed, and that
subscribe.
will have been the best thing that you've done during your short life. So, for our first segment, let's jump in. Panel. Our first segment is With Friends Like These. In our recurring segment, With Friends Like These, we talk about how shitty and useless the Democratic Party is. The Trump campaign has released a number of ads recently that, well, I think we can all agree are pretty goddamn funny and brilliant, despite Trump being a monster. They highlight the hypocrisy of Democrats over issues like the Tara Reade allegations, Nancy Pelosi's tone-deaf display of her giant ice cream fridge while many Americans are waiting in long lines at food banks. And in response, the Democrats have relied on, well, did you know that Donald Trump is also a rapist? And that he's allegedly raped more women than Joe Biden, which is important because we always award the presidency to the man who has raped the least number of women. Nancy Pelosi's defense of her ice cream freezer was even more pathetic. Days after Trump suggested that people should inject bleach into their skin to kill the Rona, Pelosi said that ice cream in her freezer is better than Lysol in someone's lungs. Sick burn, Nance. Sick burn. Here's the question for the panel. Why are they so bad at this? Is it on purpose? Are they horribly unfunny and politically useless? Or just one or the other? Why are they so? Is it as simple as protecting the ruling class privilege, hegemony, corporate interests, etc.? Nancy Pelosi's career? What the fuck is going on here? Why? It seems like they must be trying to be this bad, but it also seems like they're not trying at all. What's going on, panel?
I really think they think they're the smartest people in the room because they've been, as far as they know, the smartest people in the room their whole lives. Because they've just sort of, they've gone through expensive private high schools into Ivy Leagues and just everybody's always told them that they're really, really smart and that they're really funny and they genuinely do not know. They're like really attractive people and they're not attractive people, but they're like that in that nobody has the heart to say to them that they're terrible. Because you can't say that to a really hot person. They can't know. So yeah, I think you can say a lot. Like, of course, it's about defending the ruling class interest, blah, 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 blah. But they think the stuff works. They think it's funny. They think their ideas are brilliant. They think everybody else is stupid. And they think the American people are stupid. And it's the only reason they're not in power.
They're a good example of what happens when you take all the smartest people in the room, but you just put them together. It's just a room full of the smartest people in the room. And this is what the outcome looks like.
Well, are they the smartest people in the room?
They think they are.
Because what I hear Lyta saying is that they think that this stuff works. Now that seems to fly in the face of all of the available evidence. So what is going on here? Let's peel back this onion.
One thing that is going on is the conflation of goodness and smarts and competence, which prevents a lot of people from understanding that Donald Trump can be really good at politics, which I think is still not understood. And I think until this thing is understood, they're going to keep losing because you mentioned in your intro the Trump ads that are very effective and good. I think a lot of Democrats would find it very difficult actually you said we can all agree that the ads are good. I think that a lot of people would very much resist saying the ads are good because the ads come from Trump and Trump is stupid, therefore the ads must be bad.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, my favorite of the ads has been the Nancy Pelosi ad, which I thought was brilliant. And one of the reasons I thought it was brilliant was because for the first couple seconds, I thought it was a Shahid ad against Nancy Pelosi, attacking her for being a corporate Democrat from the left. And yet it wasn't. And it's kind of funny that Trump is able to do this, right? Because he's obviously has a ton of wealth and power. And yet he's still bringing these wealth critiques and these corporate interest critiques and these ridiculous critiques of the Democrats, and they're unable to respond.
Yeah, and I think the difference is that he's able to do that in part, I think, because the Republicans don't really travel on high horses. Like, they don't care about looking hypocritical. Whereas I think the only reason why this stings with the Democrats is because on some level, they love to point out the hypocrisy with the Republicans. It actually matters to them, and they hold themselves as the party that is not hypocritical, in part because they have no self-awareness, which makes, hitting at them so much easier. And I almost wish that, if they sort of didn't position themselves as having the higher moral ground, the ads wouldn't be as effective.
Nobody likes a hypocrite.
Yeah, like they should actually try to live up to the ideals that they are claiming to live up to.
And it's always like the better the guy who's not lying about lying to you than the guy who's lying that they're lying to you. It's kind of a complicated thing, but I think that's the appeal for a lot of people with Trump, is that he's not lying about being a rich guy and not lying about being, who he is. It's complicated because he is lying about it too at the same time. But he's not lying that it's a lie and that it's a game.
Yeah, I think the Democrats make the mistake of thinking that if someone makes a sick burn, that someone is then going to immediately look up their credentials to check if the burn is coming from the correct source.
Yeah.
I don't think that people actually do that.
I just want to carry a resume around to parties and then just make really mean comments, and people are horrified. I'm like,
Yeah. Hold up your diploma. This joke's actually funny. You find it funny because you can see. Yeah, I don't know. I think
or it's not funny because you're a Republican, therefore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the Democrats' bad snark comes from abandoning the New Deal in the 90s and not standing for anything. And so their whole party identity now is, well, we're smarter than George Bush and those daffy Christians who follow him. Plus, of course, the West Wing, which fuels that, or as I call it, the worst wing.
That's a little too spicy for this podcast.
Withdraw my comment.
These are the birds that are going to take back the Democratic Party. So I'm very excited.
I gotta say, the left is also objectively better at being online, and they've driven us all out of the party. But it's like, if you had, we're just, we're younger, I want to say, than most of the Democratic Party. And to the extent that the Democratic Party still has some youth in it, it looks a lot like Pete Buttigieg and Liz, whatever her name is. What's his lieutenant's name? Liz.
Used to work for Cuomo.
Smith, yeah.
Liz Smith, yeah.
God.
They're just, I don't know how else to say it. Like, they're just not good at being online. And one of the downsides of that is that they're very slow at responding, at creating ads that are fun to watch, as well as informative and touching. And then the huge downside of it also looks like Nancy Pelosi, refusing to learn WebEx or whatever fucking platform she could learn so she could actually convene the House remotely. It's just a different generation. And I don't mean to be, ageist about it, because there are clearly people Nancy's age who have figured out Zoom. Look at Rob, for instance, who is right here with us. But just spicing it up. No, you're an angel. But yeah.
I mean, Nancy Pelosi did do that thing where she clapped at someone once, which was both youthful and effective.
She
I don't think we
that
can.
The clap was even critical. She said people were misinterpreting her.
Well, yes, but that was a sly. I mean, that we all knew.
Yeah,
right. So, one of the questions is, why are they so bad at this? And the other question is, does it matter to make sick burns? Is that an effective, even if Trump's videos are funny, none of the people on this podcast that can vote, I think, are going to vote for Trump. So they're not capturing anyone on here. But do you think that they are capturing people? Like, how much does sick burn and onlineness, like you're saying, Vanessa, actually translate into being able to pull the levers of power?
It doesn't, because the people who actually vote watch cable television. We don't fucking show up to vote. So, that's that.
Some people, have been raising the point that for all of Joe Biden's incompetence, and for as laughable as it does seem to when we read articles like all Joe Biden needs to do is stay alive and he's best when he's not campaigning, his poll numbers right now against Trump are not actually bad, and the argument is often made, doing a horrible job on the internet does not actually guarantee that you'll fail, just as doing a really good job will succeed. But there was one more point I wanted to make on that, which was I noticed something recently, which is that Donald Trump never tangles with AOC on Twitter, even though they're both the most Twitter-heavy politicians. He stays away from her, and I think it's because he knows that she's the one person who would actually humiliate him in a Twitter exchange. And this is my theory.
I'm going to interject really quickly because I just want to get this out of the way. We've already had multiple questions about why the suits and why does Nathan dress and talk like that. So I'll answer the suit. Wait, I'll answer the suit question. Well, I don't know who wants to tackle the Nathan accent.
I will tackle the Nathan accent, actually.
Yay. So we are actually all wearing suits because we set a fundraising goal that if we had a single $200 donation to the New Orleans Freedom Fund in our first live stream, that we would all dress like Nathan. We may have initially promised that we would make Nathan take off his clothes, but I think we somehow modified that throughout the process. So we bet that goal, so we're all dressed like Nathan.
Regarding dress and accent, the goal of the left is that everyone can actualize their desires in this world. Why the fuck would you care how people dress and talk? I really don't understand this. It's actually ludicrous. Stop. Maybe it's interesting. Like, people are interesting, and I think people's style is interesting. And if that's the reason that you're asking, then Nathan, you're more than welcome to say where you get your suits. But I also don't understand the question is like, why does someone talk like that? Or why does someone dress like that? Like, people
I think that people associate.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think that people associate clothing with class, but I think it's very naive. And I had a thread to that effect. Like, without revealing too much from confidential Slack, conversations, but I don't think all of Nathan's clothes are new always. I think it's silly. Like, the point that I made, online, I guess, is that there are clothes that can look very flashy and that will actually come from Goodwill or be secondhand in some way and will not be expensive. And then there are clothes that will look like very understated shirts, very understated jacket. Like, those are probably the clothes that you need to worry about. Like, if you walk into a courtroom, a lot of people will be sort of plainly dressed on the lawyer side, and all of the suits are very, very expensive, probably. It's just not like mine. A weird, not mine either, because I'm cheap.
I've actually gone thrift suit shopping with Nathan.
Oh, yeah, it's just not a good way to, like, if your concern is class, it's just not a good way to measure what class someone belongs to. And it's just weird. Like, how far do you take it, I guess? Like, how.
Also, we want bread and roses.
Yeah.
Roses are important too.
Roses.
I mean, do we also get to make fun of people who we think dress poorly or who we think look too poor in how they dress? I just think that's weird. Like, I wouldn't attack Zizek for how he dresses, just like I wouldn't attack Nathan for how he dresses.
I might.
Yeah, that's garbage.
Zizek is my one exception.
The chat seems largely in support of Nathan's dress, but somebody does want to know if he's in a wizard's laboratory. The answer is yes.
That's a fair question. That's a fair question.
What about the accent? Oren, you've known Nathan for the longest?
Yeah, I've known Nathan for a very long time. Nathan can answer this question if he'd like, but I also think that, like, one, people's accents evolve over time. I had a much more Canadian accent when I lived in Canada. I have a different accent when I talk to my family that sort of lives in other parts of the world, and we're not speaking English. Like, my accent changes regularly. I think people's accents change regularly, but I also kind of think that it doesn't really matter because people can more or less do whatever the fuck they want unless they're hurting other people. I think that's kind of an ethic of a sort of the socialist libertarian left. So I don't know if Nathan wants to talk about it, but it baffles me that people are that interested in it.
I have some things to say about clothes. And actually getting back to Zizek for a minute.
Oh, God. This was supposed to be a segment about the Democratic Party.
Oh no, I'm gonna be a real bitch because I want to be. It sucks that left men get to be gross. it's actually like a big problem that they get to be schlubby and gross, and then they could be taken seriously. And because it's not a class marker, that's the thing. And if you know people and you've been around people, like I've lived in New York for a long time. Like I've lived in poor neighborhoods and I've lived in some wealthier neighborhoods. In the poor neighborhoods, people dress super well. There are really cool, like little discount stores and thrift stores, and people wear interesting, flashy street fashion. It's when you go to Williamsburg, it's when you go to like really rich Manhattan neighborhoods, that's when you see people dressing schlubby on purpose, who are wealthy. That's the thing. It's a sign of wealth. It's not a sign of poverty. It depends. Again, it kind of depends where you are. It might be different, like in different places. But when it comes to like living in cities, when it comes to like academics dressing like schlubs, it's because they fucking can. They're rich and they can, and it's obnoxious because women still have to dress well.
Yeah, you should also. I also think people should ask themselves the question, and I'm not the one who came up with this. I feel like we've had a conversation about this behind closed doors at Current Affairs. But when you use the word dandy to describe Nathan, internally, I think you should pause and ask yourself whether what you really mean is Nathan dressing gay?
Yeah, you mean homophobia.
Right. Do you think, is Nathan not dressing in a way that is masculine enough, or that sort of comports with like the gender identity or sexual orientation that you think he is? And are you using the word dandy as a substitute? Like, are his clothes, like the reason that it's even flashing any red lights in your mind, at all related to, I don't know.
I put in one tiny defense of dressing schlubby. Which is that I agree that there are different standards, sort of across a bunch of different identities. I do think I would rather a world where we didn't like level up to everyone has to dress a certain particular way to have their opinion taken seriously, but that we level down to everyone can dress however the fuck they want. Now, I think that like there's a lot of work to get to that place, and that's not what exists now, and so I agree with that. But I don't want the idea to be like I don't disrespect Zizek because he dresses like a schlub. I disrespect Zizek because he's an idiot. And so
there.
And I point out we had one question from viewers about why does Nathan dress and talk like that? Has Nathan actually spoken since that question was asked?
No, we're.
I keep trying to kick it to Nathan.
I do need to interject one little thing,
Nathan.
Which is that Oren, like, and as much as I'm a supporter of hot people rights, the world is different for hot people, and like you can be schlubby and still be taken seriously because of your face. It's a different world.
I dress in political t-shirts all the time, and I'm upset that I don't get to do it in court.
My goal is
still look good regardless.
Yeah, I've always said that my goal is to be so good at my day job that no one can give me shit for not even rising up to business casual, which I'm completely unable. Like, I'm not even wearing a bra right now. I put on the jacket and a tie for you guys, but
respect.
Can't do it. Nathan.
Nathan, close out this segment for us, which has gotten wildly off track.
People make fun of my clothes, although By the way, this is a brand new jacket, and this is a $70 suit that I got because I wanted a white suit that would pop against this dark background. I don't usually go in white suits; I usually go in dark suits. But I don't care if anyone makes fun of the clothes. That's fine. I think they look kind of silly, but that's all right with me. If you're going after I'd rather they go after my clothes than after my writing, because that I actually take pride in.
On our next segment, we'll go after Nathan's writing.
I just like to interject that, because I often think of this fondly. Nathan and I were wearing very similar outfits when we met for the first time. And I feel like that was a sign at the time.
Describe.
Well,
all
we were
right.
both wearing the jacket like vest combo.
Vests can get it.
Vests can't get it. This is true. I also like a vest, no jacket situation sometimes, depending. Like a wool vest.
Yeah, but do you mean no shirt? Because I mean, I do like that.
Yeah,
that's very like Las Vegas magician type.
No shirt
Once
and
again,
a wool vest?
We should bring that out.
That's itchy.
I'm in wool right now,
Look,
and I'm sweating my butt.
You got to
off.
sacrifice.
I took my robe off. It's too hot.
You got to sacrifice for fashion.
We should,
All right.
bits, yeah.
that is the end of segment 1, which initially was with friends like these. And I think one of the nice bookends that we put on that was we talked about friends like these, the Democrats, who are garbage. And then we talked about friends like these, the friends that we have on Current Affairs, who will verbally beat people with a baseball bat if they attack Nathan's fashion. All right. Next on the program, we are bringing back a segment that we did in the Current Affairs live show in DC, which was a resounding success and a very good time. We got to sing Solidarity Forever with a squid lawyer played by Sparky Abraham, and with, at that point, AOC's chief of staff, Saikat Chakrabarti. It was very fun and enjoyable. But the segment that we are bringing back is called Nuisance or Nemesis. The world is full of dislikable people. Some are merely annoying. Others are genuinely dangerous. In Nuisance or Nemesis, the panel will use rigorous scientific analysis to determine whether to throw people we hate into one of two places. Whether they deserve to be placed in a bug jar with holes popped in the top where they'll be confined but can still flutter about, or whether they deserve to be thrown into the gaping maw of a volcano. Are they a nemesis that needs to be destroyed, or a nuisance that can be effectively ignored? So the structure of this is I'm going to go very quickly through a list of names, and for each name, I'd like both people on the panel, and if you're interested in the chat or on Twitter, to chat at us your defenses or rebukes of this person. I'd like to give defenses of this person. Yes, no, they're only a nemesis. They only deserve to be trapped in a bug jar. Or no, they're only a nuisance. They deserve to be trapped in a bug jar. Or no, they're a nemesis. Throw them in the volcano. And then after a few defenses or attacks, we will vote for each person. We'll try to get through a number of these as we go. The first one comes to us from Nick Slater, our wonderful newsletter editor.
Oh.
And it is Mehdi Hassan. Go. Nuisance or nemesis?
I don't think that reads that well. I just wrote it on a napkin.
I am
doesn't
abstaining.
work.
I like Mehdi Hassan.
I see a couple of votes for nuisance, no votes for nemesis.
What is that?
Nick says who, which is the proper question. Does anyone want to advocate for Mehdi being thrown in the volcano, or are we all okay with him in the bug jar?
The fact that he's beneath Renix's notice is, I think, sufficient.
Why do people feel like he qualifies as a nuisance and shouldn't just be free to roam about?
Anybody who's angling that hard for an MSNBC job is a nuisance. Just by default of what he's doing. How would we explain him to Renix? Like, is there a good one sentence?
He's a
guy.
host at The Intercept. He hosts a podcast, and he's a writer, I want to say.
He was
Is that
better
fair?
in the past. He's sort of more annoying now.
He's been on the Current Affairs podcast. I like
Yeah,
him.
I liked him on the
oops.
Current Affairs podcast. No, I
He's
generally
not
like
coming back now.
I generally like Mehdi's work, but it sounds like most of the panel wants to put him in the bug jar, so in he goes.
He's gotten very annoying.
Wait. I don't understand. I thought it was nuisance or nemesis, but you're saying the choice is not binary? We could also
No, the choice
choose neither?
the choice is binary. Nathan just refused to play the game.
I just don't want him in the bug jar.
And then where are you putting him?
People can be free. Some people
Release
are
him into the
allowed.
wild.
No, not in this game. That's not the structure of this.
Okay.
Nathan is overridden by the majority,
The
and in
jar.
he goes. Our next person up for evaluation, and I'm looking to Allegra and Rob and the people that haven't spoken.
I'm out here monitoring the chat, but okay, go ahead.
Look, you got to give some opinions. The people want it. I think. I don't know. This comes to us from Vanessa. Sean McElwee. Go. Discuss. Who is he? Why does he deserve what he deserves?
I just think we have to be clear that nuisance is the merciful option.
Yes.
Nuisance is good. You keep bringing up the bug jar, and it makes you feel mean.
People
for me
can
to
survive
vote
in a bug
nuisance.
jar.
What is this
Okay.
cultural nonsense?
Look, I don't like any of these options, but this is where we are. This is the game.
This time it's my turn to not know who the person is.
Vanessa, explain to us who this person is.
Sean is a co-founder of Data Progress, which does some excellent job conducting polls, even though all the polls always point to Elizabeth Warren. It's so weird. And he is, I'm just joking if you're watching, just joking. Data for Progress is honestly very good at what they do, I think. And then he is also a co-founder of another organization called Sean. And
Is this why you nominated him?
each letter stands for a real word, but at the end of the day, the acronym is still his name. I
Ugh.
think that's a bug jar. That's a bug jar.
That's a nuisance.
Bacronyming into your own name is definitely bug jar, even though I still don't know who he
A
is.
gentle toss into the bug jar. No shaking the bug jar. Nothing violent.
He also hosts a left media happy hour every Thursday, or used to back before pandemic times. It's just like an annoying thing. I don't know. I went once. I met some cool people. It was still pretty annoying.
Why?
People don't
Why
seem
was
to have
it
very
annoying?
strong opinions about these people.
It's very, he's somebody who swans around looking for the most important person in the room, and you can
Shawns
tell
around.
he's very tall, and he kind of looks over your head, which is like an easy thing to do because he's very tall, but also because he's looking for the person who's more important than you are, and it's not a good left attitude, is my feeling.
All right.
Tall
All right.
Not
So-
a left out.
It sounds like bug jar for
Bug jar. He's not that.
Sean is the decision. There doesn't seem to be a lot of vim and vigor about these people, so I'm going to throw someone
real
into the
enemies.
mix. Nathan says real enemies,
We need some real.
and I'll put forth for your consideration.
Okay.
Slavoj Žižek.
Mm.
Oh,
I'm scared of this over. We've had a couple of spicy comments in the chats. I believe this man has been mentioned, so I fear for my safety.
I have
Oh,
no,
no.
Should feel
I have
safe.
no opinions.
Well,
Nathan?
I'm
hang
staying
on.
out of this one.
Nathan, make your
Okay.
case, and then people can vote.
Listen. I think that ordinarily I treat Mr. Zizek, Professor Zizek, mostly as a
Mr.
nuisance. I don't know. I think he's a
Mr.
professor at
Him.
an unaccredited university. I treat him mostly as a small nuisance whose texts I don't enjoy reading. However, Mr. Zizek recently has declared essentially that we are nemesis. Because we published an article about him in Current Affairs that was not positive. And he has suggested in an interview that Current Affairs is in a conspiracy. He might have been joking, but it's difficult to tell with him. That it's a conspiracy by Noam Chomsky to destroy him, and specifically said that it was Chomsky's revenge, which is a quote that is now appearing on our magazine as a tagline. So I think he would agree that he's now a formal nemesis of the magazine, and we are now obligated to cast him into the volcano.
Anyone else would rather put him as a nuisance, or everyone agrees this man should be a nemesis?
No, I think nuisance.
We
He's
have
very-
someone in the chat who says liberal, put him in the bug jar.
I don't know that Zizek is a liberal.
He's not
but
a liberal. He's
I
just
feel like
very
people
annoying.
just keep saying the word liberal
People
all the
can
time
suck
now.
without being liberals. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, it's not that it has a word that has a meaning. It's not a euphemism for someone I don't like.
So
Is his coronavirus book good? He wrote it so fast.
It's not
he
good.
writes
Nothing
all
he
of his
does is
books.
good.
He has a lot of words. So here's the thing about
They're the
Zizek.
same words. He plagiarizes himself.
It's true.
Bullshit. He's a bullshit
He
person.
does do that. So Nathan and I wrote a book called Blueprints for a Sparkling Tomorrow, in which we established a relationship with Zizek that was unkind and had a chapter about him. With that said, I find him a nuisance because I think there's two, I don't know how you all are evaluating nuisance or nemesis, but I'm thinking about how bad is this person and how much power do they have? And to me, Zizek is sort of inconsequential in both. and so therefore he can hang out in the bug jar. Go hang out there.
That's a
All
feeling
right.
too. He's not
Yeah,
important enough.
I don't want him cast into the volcano because every time he comes up, Oren makes really funny jokes about him and parodies his style mercilessly. So I think we should keep him around.
He's the easiest to parody.
Yeah, I think he's been the definition of a left-wing nuisance forever with his often completely incomprehensible and empty prose, which we've all talked about sort of extensively. I would say if there's a level between nuisance and nemesis, though, because the amount, I mean, just for a moment, let's take a second and think about how many poor left-wing graduate students have poured hours into trying to understand what in God's alleged name this guy is saying in his writing and in his interviews. As soon as anything looks bad, then it's ironic. Yeah, but no one found it ironic and no one laughed. So a little more than a nuisance, a little less than a nemesis. I don't know what that is.
His go-to is also, "Oh no, you've misunderstood me,"
Yes.
and yet no one ever
Noxious.
seems to understand him.
Yeah, Nudnik. Someone
that's
who's
way better.
very annoying. Like
All right.
beyond the level of nemesis, but
I like
not really.
Into the
Well,
Nudik
I-
zone he goes.
That's just when like your family doesn't want to talk to you when you
I
come
can
over to
think of
Passover.
one podcast that understands him very well.
I don't.
So Sean,
well,
no named here.
in a way that I wouldn't like to understand.
I don't think
Zizek,
they
perhaps.
understand him. I mean, I
Um,
don't think he makes sense.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
All right, our next person. So here the question is both, you know, how bad is he, but also how much power does he have to make our lives terrible? Andrew Cuomo. Lyda says nemesis. Lyda, give your reasoning. Should people agree with you? Why?
Yeah, because he's a fucking asshole. There's a lot of reasons why so many people have died in this city, and he's a big part of it. He's done a terrible job. He's cut Medicaid in the middle of the pandemic. He's the reason that the hospitals were under-resourced and underfunded to begin with. They ran this scenario, this pandemic scenario a couple of years ago. We're like, wow, should this happen, if it was a flu pandemic, is what they figured. We're gonna need way more ventilators than we have. And he's like, oh, we'll just like get to the ventilators. They don't fucking get the ventilators. It's a complete disaster. It sucks. And he's not, again, a lot of people are at fault for what's going on. De Blasio definitely, Trump definitely, but Cuomo, there's people who are dead. There's a lot of people who are dead, and it's his fault. I think that's a nemesis, because I think when you kill people, you're a nemesis.
Who else?
I don't think Zizek's killed anybody.
Oh, well, we don't know.
We don't
He hasn't.
He doesn't seem like he's got the balls.
That sounds like one of his jokes.
Yeah.
He would
So
tell
that
the
guy's-
cops he killed them ironically.
Vanessa says nemesis. Anyone think only nuisance for Mr.
Cuomo?
Yeah,
Jesus, into the volcano.
Volcano for sure. He has power.
He has power.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's
He
not
has
just irritating.
power. There's also
Let's just see how those nipple rings do in that degree of heat.
It's like the one ring.
ninth
I
ring
don't
of
know.
hell is a Cuomo nipple ring. All right, into the volcano goes Mr. Cuomo.
Our first.
First into the volcano. Look, you need to
And not
reach
the
a certain
last.
threshold. All right, we're going to do two more, and then we'll move on from this segment. Next, Joe Biden.
That's a tough one.
Someone give a response and defend it, and then we'll all kind of jump in on this.
I'm torn because in of himself, I think he's merely a nuisance, but other people have made him into a nemesis.
Oh, interesting.
What do you mean by that?
Unpack that.
Because he's like, he's just a dumb guy. He's a very stupid man who's been sort of put into this position of, you know, being a potential nominee. He's a creep, and he's quite probably a rapist. But he's not in of himself like really evil, but he is going to champion some extremely evil policies on behalf of some extremely rich people, and a lot of corporate giveaways and insurance giveaways. You know what? I'm talking myself into nemesis.
Yeah, he's a volcano.
Yeah, I'm
Crime
talking myself into
bill.
nemesis. Yeah,
Crime bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nemesis.
Also,
Crime
all
bill.
politicians should be default nemesis, and then they have to argue their way
That's
to
fair.
nemesis.
Argue
And
their way to
Biden's
ne-
not close
yeah.
to getting there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that, you know, one of the ways to sort of judge politicians is all the bad things that they do, and I think they should be held accountable for all of those things. Another way is also all of the bad things that they did when there was no conceivable benefit. Like, you know, Bill Clinton did a lot of bad things. some people argue that it was for like the Democrats to keep power. Not a justification. But then there's the question of all the things he did where that argument was not available at all. And that happened a lot for Biden. So I would agree, I'll vote to cast him in as well.
The Iraq War, right? I mean, if one of our criteria here is that getting people killed turns you into a nemesis, that was one of the most murderous pieces, probably the most murderous piece of American foreign policy in this entire century. The only reason Democrats voted for it was mainly because they didn't want to appear like softies. They didn't want to appear unpatriotic.
Dandies, if you will.
Little did they know, softness is good.
Yeah, once it gets into war crimes, it's beyond nuisance territory, you know. And just one of the Biden things for my nuisance vote, personally, as someone who works in the evil science, economics, I would say that Bankruptcy Reform Act, that all came out of the credit card Delaware senator's office, so plenty of reasons to put him
also in just making up like friends. It's got to stop, at some point. We've got to say when. And into the volcano.
So for actions large and small, Biden is cast shrieking into the volcano. Our final one has been in the news a little bit about her labor practices recently. Ellen DeGeneres.
Finally, a woman! I was waiting.
Women can be terrible too.
Women can be terrible too. There are a lot of terrible men, though, but women can be terrible too. I will say I didn't get too many people on our list because of timing. But
I think I put 19 on that list.
You did.
A lot of people I don't like.
You did. So Ellen DeGeneres, nuisance or nemesis?
Nemesis.
I'm trying to find that thread with all the horrible stories about her.
Wait, what makes her? So I would say nuisance because she seems like a bad person, like interpersonally, the way most people in show business are. But what has she done that would make her a nemesis?
So normally I would say, okay, she's just a nuisance. She's just like an annoying showbiz person. But apparently every single person in LA has a story or knows somebody who has a story about working for her. And she's just a monster. She's just a nightmare person.
There's a thread. Yeah, there's a thread that compiles the stories, but there's a story. Apparently she's one of these people who does not like it when her employees look at her in the eye. And is
that a type of person?
And apparently someone worked for her who is said to have been autistic and didn't necessarily read social cues as easily, did, I guess, make eye contact with her and he would say hi to her every time he would see her, and she got his ass fired. It's just what kind of monster does that?
That's pretty monstrous. I also agree that she should be a nemesis. Normally I think media people are nuisances, but there is a category of supposedly liberal media figures that provided a lot of cover for George Bush and continue to try to rehabilitate him, and for monstrous things that the US government does under sort of aren't we all friends sort of showy attitude. And as we spin further towards the apocalypse, I get more and more angry at the people that tried to pretend that we weren't doing terrible things. And so I think she's well in that category. And I find that an extremely upsetting sort of piece of propaganda.
People think she's really nice. It's really hard to tell boomer moms that she's a bad person. I've had this conversation with both my mother and my mother-in-law, and and I'm like, oh, her employees hate her. And they're like, well, her job is hard. They just don't want it because she seems so nice on TV. They don't want to buy it.
She also had a fairly heinous role in the writer's strike a couple years ago as well, if you want to throw that on the fire too.
Nathan, thoughts?
On Ellen?
On Ellen.
I've never watched the show. I know. The Bush thing. She did the Bush thing. No,
she did the Bush thing.
Jesus. You don't dance with Bush and paper over his crimes and get exempted from the volcano treatment.
Yeah, she rich. She has class solidarity with the rich, which includes lots of bad people.
Then everyone says her spouse, Portia de Rossi, is a wonderful human being. And I have questions, right? How do you stay married to someone who has a reputation as a monster. I mean, I suppose that maybe Portia is also a monster privately, but as long as she doesn't exert that force onto other people, then that's fine.
Portia's
Right.
also really hot. This is like another problem. Like, it's really hard to tell when hot people are terrible because they're hot and it's confusing.
I'd like an article from you at some point, Lyda, about your theory of like
Theory of hot
hotness
people.
as social like mechanism in the world.
Like,
All right,
Hornantine is already starting.
all right. The lay it out for us, Lyda.
what about hot people?
Yeah, just give us a little sprinkling of tease us about your article.
Well, here's what I want. I need you to run an experiment for me in order to make this article work, because I'm gonna have to do some like in the field research. I'm gonna need you to somehow make yourself ugly, and then go around in the world once quarantine is over and just see how people treat you, and see how different it is, and then we'll be able to like really tease out like the difference between what it is to be like a hot person and not.
All right, all hot current affairs fans,
Yeah,
engage in this practice.
I meant Oren specifically, but also you guys. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, this is a democratic magazine. All right, Ellen.
You want to do one lightning one from the chat?
Yes,
Sure,
one lightning
yeah.
one from the chat. To keep gender parity, Ellen goes into the volcano,
Yeah.
and because
Because, yeah.
because.
Because.
All
So
right,
lightning
give us a
round.
lightning one.
Bill Gates.
Bill
I
Gates.
s-
All right, Allegra.
Oh, I think I have to say Nemesis to be consistent, because that was my answer of which thought leader I would throw into the volcano in my first newsletter. Because
Nathan.
Oh, volcano.
Lightning. Nathan. Volcano. Renix.
Volcano?
Rob.
I just wrote a whole article trashing that phony and his lousy foundation. Volcano within another volcano. Throw him in there.
Wait, and read Rob's book, Bit Tyrants, because you've got a whole chapter on Microsoft,
That's right.
and you'll find out all the dirty secrets of Microsoft.
It's slimier than you're even thinking.
Lyda.
Into the sun or volcano, I don't care.
All right,
Pick
I'm
one.
going to be
Pick a
the one
fiery
dissenting voice. I think we should just strip him of his wealth and then put him in the bug jar.
Okay, that's
But-
fair, actually.
Was that an optional?
Before
Yeah.
he dies. Before
Anything
he
is an-
dies.
anything
Not
is
with
an
that
option.
fucking pledge. Okay.
Anything is an option. All right. Into the volcano by majority rule. He goes screaming, and we end our segment. I will say that that the world is divided into nuisances and nemesis, but there is one thing that doesn't fall into either of those categories, and that's Current Affairs Magazine, which everyone should subscribe to now. Go to www.currentaffairs.org.
Oren, just before you go to the next segment, Allegra tells me we've been getting a lot of questions on one subject that I think is probably worth addressing so that people don't keep asking the same question over again,
Sure.
which is Joe Biden. There's the controversy over Joe Biden, the Law and Crime article about Joe Biden allegedly commenting on a young teenager's breasts, and now it's come out that he wasn't at the event in question, and we got a lot of people going, why do you tweet the story?
Well, I know nothing about this, so tell us.
Oh, okay. Well, so a woman who's now in her 20s accused Joe Biden of sexually harassing her when she was 14. There was a story in Law and Crime that came out about it, and I tweeted it and said we're probably going to see now Democrats either just ignoring it or saying why actually it turns out that this is fine. But it's turned out that Biden wasn't at the event, so now there's a lot of people say, false things being promoted. And the thing I think, just to answer people's question on this, is that when accusations are made, we need to take them seriously, and we need to investigate them. And if they turn out not to be true, that there's facts on the other side, then that's what you say. Then you come to a conclusion. But you don't ignore accusations, and you don't say that you don't make arguments that are unfair or false. And I think if it comes out that this isn't credible, then we dismiss it and we say it isn't credible. And I think that's the way to handle these things. And the thing that annoys me is ignoring accusers, not taking them seriously, coming up with bad arguments for why we should dismiss them. And I'm totally fine. We should care about the truth above all. And I'm totally fine if there's evidence on the other side saying that this accusation probably isn't true if he wasn't at the place on the date where it was supposedly happened.
Although perhaps the person misremembered the date. Like
Well,
it's just
that's
it's
also
hard to
possible.
know. Yeah, and misremembered the exact event if they'd been to multiple events. You know. Something
But
like that.
like, you know,
yeah,
Anyone
but
else?
worth taking seriously.
but you gotta listen. You gotta hear people out.
And the dude
That's
has a
the
history. It's entirely plausible, as other people have said similar things. Other young girls have said that he did similar things. Even this particular one isn't right. It's worth investigating because it fits a pattern that we are very familiar with.
What can I ask? So I've had my head in the sand for the past couple of days. Can I ask why this particular story got so right? Because there's well documented stories of similar sorts.
Well, but those are well documented. This one might be wrong, so it's interesting. And so that, I mean, that's the thing. 'Cause,
Right,
like,
but if
they
there's like
wanna
seven
disprove
true
stuff.
stories and one not
Well,
true one, it
yeah,
doesn't.
but the 7
doesn't
true ones are
undercut
inconvenient.
The reporter who from ABC who got the people who organized the dinner to weigh in, and then who posted screenshots of how the Biden staffers recorded the event, which is to say that they sent someone named John in his place, apologized for the tweets, and then deleted them.
It seems.
I
reasonable,
couldn't
mean.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
she
unclear
said
what's true.
she apologized for the unvetted allegation in her previous tweets, but I didn't understand what that meant because there was no allegation in her tweets. It was just people, responding to the allegation and saying, "Here is evidence." So I don't know. It's all very confusing. It's clearly a developing situation, but I'm on Nathan's side, right? Like if there's contrary evidence and it's more than just Joe Biden saying I didn't do it, but you have, a calendar and you have the people saying, well, actually he sent someone in his stead. First of all, again, I don't know that it means that she was lying, like she may be confused, or maybe this person, is lying. Like I don't know, but it means certainly that it has to be like looked more into. I don't know what's wrong with saying like, oh, here is what one person has alleged.
Well, I think most of the people who are reacting this way were already pretty vehemently set against believing any allegation against Joe Biden. So
Yeah.
It's hard to take that specific criticism. Why is Nathan lying? Why is Nathan spreading disinformation or deleting tweets? It's hard to take any of those allegations super seriously when you know that they're not really coming from a place of good faith in general.
One of the problems is if you leave a false thing up, people say, why have you left this up? And if you delete it, they say, why did you delete it? But my position is we have to make arguments that are fair arguments. And my whole outrage on the Tara Reid thing has been that the arguments that are being used against her don't make sense or involve manipulating things she said and finding inconsistencies that aren't actually there. There's a big thing right now where people are pretending that she walked back, that she once said how their assault was in the complaint she filed. That's not what she said. They're just not listening. And I'm like, why? We need to evaluate every allegation with looking at evidence and making arguments that make sense rather than things that are just convenient.
But you see, Democrats are the party of facts and reason. And when they say that they've done the facts and reason, you just move along. You don't say, hey, you haven't done the facts and reason, because you're calling their whole identity into question. And that's rude. That's rude, Nathan.
So Nathan has been rude. Facts and evidence seem to be important. People in power seem to be trash. This seems to be the theme of the day.
Think to that.
So let us move on to segment 3, loneliness, more or less. On our recurring segment, loneliness, more or less, we examine some of the tactics that people are engaging with during the corona pandemic while they are perhaps alone or potentially even lonely. Ever since the lockdown began, online activities have been sprouting up across the internet like toadstools in a field of cow shit. Netflix watch parties, virtual hikes, remote yoga classes, Zoom orgies. The list grows longer by the hour. I saw your face on Zoom orgies, Leda.
Call me. Just kidding.
But do these
That's
digital
a joke.
diversions actually alleviate our loneliness, or merely make us more acutely aware of our isolation and trappedness? Oh God, this is a sad segment. Well, we're going to keep this one short. I'm already depressed enough. Let's put it to the panel. Have you been tempted to take a Tibetan sound bath with strangers on Google Hangouts? Or do you feel lost in an uncanny valley of human interaction? Panel. What is your opinion on all of these sort of Zoom, Google Hangout activities? Are these sort of the best substitutes we have for human interaction in a time when we can't see each other? Is this creating long-term social change to the way that we're going to interact in the future? Are Zoom orgies good or bad?
Look, the best alternative to human interaction already existed, and it's Harry Potter fan fiction. So really my life hasn't changed at all.
I feel like Zoom must be disorienting if you have like this thing where it switches screen depending on who's making noise. Like
You've got to do gallery view for a Zoom orgy.
Yeah. That just seems like there could be a lot of logistical snafus there.
I'm so proud that Oren knows about gallery view now.
I've been
think
taught. You can even pin a video.
We can do backgrounds. We can do the whole thing.
I can't do backgrounds. I would if it was a Zoom orgy, though. I'd figure it out.
I just feel like a Zoom orgy sounds uncomfortable. Maybe I'm being unimaginative.
Even if it's on the deck of the USS Enterprise?
Well, you see, that's the only way to do it, as far as I know. You set your background to the Enterprise, but you got to wear like a Troy outfit, and then I guess take it off.
So,
yeah. I think social media has always been a good substitute for normal human interaction. I mean, it's different because like different people like different levels of interaction. For some people, digital interaction has always been easier than in-person interaction. So I don't want to like speak for everybody, but like, I don't think there's anything wrong with basically anything that anybody's doing right now to cope and comfort themselves with what's going on. And Zoom orgies seem fine. Just don't interrupt other people's like meetings with Zoom orgies, which has happened occasionally.
I think Nathan is currently on a Zoom orgy on his phone right now.
Yeah.
I was looking them up.
For research only.
I was just curious.
Yeah. I don't know. It's fine.
I'm on
We've got
double
to do what we gotta do.
What's this?
Right
Oh my.
before we started live streaming, I purchased 6 online Zoom yoga classes from the yoga
Nice.
studio that I usually go to. We'll see. And I'm not really doing it for the company. I would say I'm doing it because my body is disintegrating.
You could lean into that, though. That's what I've done.
But yeah, I don't know. Why not? We're in the camp of like letting people do what they want to do, right? So if people want to bake a shit ton of sourdough bread and bury their feelings in that dough, then I think that's completely okay.
Does it do any kind of long-term, like, has Twitter gotten worse in quarantine?
Yes.
What kind of
God.
long-term stuff is going on here?
There was actually a really good article by Soraya Roberts that some people were really upset about, but she started off talking about sourdough bread but it's sort of like the general, like the things that people are doing in quarantine maybe they see them as being like kind of noble, or like I'm like doing things to like help myself, and like I'm becoming a better person because I'm doing sourdough bread. Like it's just you're doing what you can. I think people need to have like just like a realistic. That was a good article. I think people need to have like realistic expectations of like what it is that they're doing and what how good it is actually for them. Like you can just sort of distract yourself with like making sourdough bread, but you're not doing wellness. Like wellness with a capital W. You're getting by. It's fine. We're all getting by. That's okay.
The only thing I have a problem with is when people frame the one thing they're doing for themselves as some kind of benevolent action, like in the name of charity. Was it some like B-rate actress who this week was like letting my hair go silver to support the troops? And it's like, no,
Yes.
Your hair salon is closed and you're not going to take, any risks yourself with the color bottle. And that's okay. Like showering for peace. Like, no, good for you if you're showering, but
If you want.
if you want.
Nothing, it's fine.
times
Whatever
like
you want to
these.
do right now is fine. It doesn't matter. It's okay.
I feel like
Unless you live with me, in which case showering is required. I've had
Sounds
to say
like there's
that.
been
I've had
some
to say that at
trouble.
least once.
I feel like I've been able to force you all to hang out with me more often since quarantine started. So I think this is all good.
Well, you also have the benefit of your regular diet being more or less the quarantine diet.
Yes. I don't know how this has come up in like the last 10, I feel like podcasts we've done, but I like eating beans.
Look, all content is bean content under quarantine.
It just sounds like the beginning of a musical number that I really wish somebody would just burst out into right now.
Danny Bradley,
Yeah, we should have gotten him.
CC.
Nathan, what's your quarantine interaction experience been like?
What my quarantine interaction?
How are you enjoying
I
or
can't
not
escape
enjoying
people.
this?
It's terrible. Yeah. People calling me, people texting me, people sending me hate mail. Like, all the hate mail definitely keeps me company. I've had so many people who just like really making sure that my level of human interaction doesn't drop. But
Have you tried stapling the hate mail, printing out the hate mail, stapling it into the shape of a person?
To me in a day as possible. So no, I'd like fewer people, please.
All right, Nathan, on the fewer people angle of quarantine. Rob,
Yeah.
how about you? How are you enjoying this whole situation?
Oh, so much. To me, it's all goofy because, this is very self-centered, but I had the book come out lately, and the book tour got kind of smothered up in the present unpleasantness. But it turns out you can just podcast literally every day for days on end with different sweet people who are also eager to fill up the long hours as the shadows slowly move across our apartments as the long days come and go. So I find talking remotely to nice people and chatting with them like this, that works very well. So my advice to people struggling in quarantine is have some long project that is happening during the quarantine by coincidence. That works pretty good for me.
That's a good note. That's a good note to end on. We'll end that segment, which is a recurring segment, loneliness, more or less. It sounds like some of us have more, some of us have less. But we are here for all current affairs listeners and readers. You can always tweet at us. And it sounds like Nathan is, what I heard, is excited about getting a bunch of messages.
Yeah,
So please
don't tweet at me.
message
I'm not gonna
Nathan.
read it. I'm not checking the message.
Nathan is committing to
checking it
reading
too
all of your
much.
tweets. Nathan, if you believe
Stop looking at Twitter.
if you believe in Chomsky's principles, you'll answer every email.
Oh, that's the problem, right? The problem is that Chomsky's so dedicated to replying to everyone that I feel like I have to.
Do you
That's
think
a
he
good
answers his
feeling.
death threats?
Is what?
Do you think he answers his like death threat mail, or
I think he answers a lot
like
more
thank you
than
for
you'd
your
expect.
thoughts?
I think he answers quite a bit of mail. All right. On to our last segment before our fan segment. It's going to be a short one. It's called...
Yeah, wait. Real quick. If you want us to we'll have a few minutes at the end to just discuss anything that you've tweeted at us or like a question that you've asked the editorial board. So if you haven't done that yet and you want to ask us a question or just some shit that you want us to bullshit about, type it in the chat or tweet at me at
Yes.
Current Affairs.
That is a good point. Tweet at us now. There's a donate button that you can give us money, or you can buy the magazine, which looks great.
Currentaffairs.org/subscribe.
Looks great on any coffee table. There's not a coffee table that it looks poor on.
You should buy Rob's book too, Bit Tyrants. Recently out.
Yes, do that. Also, maybe buy Current Affairs first, but then buy the book, definitely.
And then if you ever have new people over to your house ever again, they will be impressed by your coffee table.
Yeah, they'll want to have sex with you.
Exactly. Or you could put it in the background of your Zoom orgy. See?
Yeah, you may
Multiple
not have to wait
uses.
years for this to pay off. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you're having a current affair. See, it'll even make sense thematically.
Holy shit. All right.
Blown.
Our next segment for the panel is called Snacks. In a recurring segment, Snacks, we discuss snacks, large and small. Everyone on the Current Affairs staff is a snack, and everyone eats food-style snacks. But some are better than others. In the recurring segment, Snacks, our panel seeks to tackle the hard questions. Are Cheez-Its better than nacho cheese Doritos?
Yes.
Wait your goddamn turn. Does anything not go with hummus?
That's so unexpected from you.
This is amazing. I loved that.
Or he's
And
evil.
which nuts are the good nuts anyway? Panel. We've recently had some near magazine ending arguments about the validity of Triscuits. But more broadly, what are your thoughts? What snacks are the good snacks, and what snacks should no longer be allowed, if any?
Triscuits should be banned because they're terrible.
Yeah, we've already dealt with that, and that's wrong.
No, there's like a
continue.
spike. There's like a gross spike.
I thought there was
gets
dissent
to your
on
throat.
Triscuits.
They're
Yeah,
only
Sparky
orange.
and I are pro.
Oh, yeah,
Sparky
Sparky
and I
too.
are pro Triscuits.
Sparky, we figured out Sparky was pro guacamole and hummus, which you put on Triscuits. It's fine, but it's the least good vehicle
Wait,
for hummus
Rob.
and guacamole.
Rob, do you have views on Triscuits?
This is important.
I do, and what could be more important? Yeah, I grew up eating Triscuits as a young man. They were a favorite of my father, who was Professor Robert Larson before me. And I always thought they were just like what people had for crackers and such. I remember I was like 25. I was like not young anymore when I realized like, oh, it's like a biscuit, but there's one more, so it's Triscuit.
Is that what it is?
I didn't know that.
I recovered from realizing that years ago. So that's my contribution.
There's controversy. Do you know, and Sparky looked this up, there's controversy over why Triscuits are called Triscuits. Because apparently, the makers of Triscuits insist that it means electricity biscuit. Because...
What the fuck? No, it doesn't.
They said because Triscuits were baked in electric ovens. And this is what they insist. But apparently there's a conspiracy theory that the makers of Triscuits are lying about the origin of the name Triscuit, which is in fact linked to it being 3 layers of something.
The
Why would they lie
origin is
about it?
trash biscuit. It is a portmanteau of trash biscuit.
Triscuits suck. They suck. It like hurts my tongue to even think about it.
Look,
It's like taking a sisal rug that my cat would scratch.
first of all, they're tasty. Second of all, even if they weren't, why? Look, let's just have multiple desires fulfilled in this world. If people like Triscuits, they should be able to eat Triscuits. You guys aren't just disliking Triscuit. On the internal current affairs Slack, there was calls for Triscuits themselves to be banned, which seems,
Into volcano.
fascist at best. Many other things at worst. All right, other snacks. What are your favorite quarantine snacks right now? What nuts are good?
I eat. This is a hashtag confession. I eat ungodly amounts of craisins, and craisins, which are dried cranberries. For those who may not know, they are not comparable to raisins, which are disgusting and should be eradicated from this planet. But so craisins, I eat a lot of them. You would think, some might think there is no such thing as too much fiber. And I can tell you, based on my inordinate consumption of craisins, that there is actually such a thing as too much fiber. I eat them until I'm sick. They destroy me from the inside out, and I cannot stay away. Sometimes I literally have to make people take the craisins away from me and hide them in my home so that I cannot find them myself. But they are delicious. It's like the right balance of sweetness and acidity. They go into savory salads, but they can also go into cakes. They go into anything, and you can just eat them by the handful, and they're a pretty color. They're so small, like if you're a person with an oral fixation, as I am, which correlates with also how much juicy fruit gum I chew all the time when I'm trying to make myself not eat craisins. You can just pop them in your mouth, into like infinity, until you feel sick. Anyway, so that's my pitch for craisins. I am both for and against them. I don't know. I think I just need therapy around
This is where we found out this whole live show is a setup for an intervention. Crazy consumption. So it had that classic, like, it's ruining my life, but they're really great.
But they're really good. And then you just kept going. Well, little did you know that this episode is actually brought to you by Ocean Spray.
I do love pomegranate seeds, so they're a good thing to just pop.
A lot of work to get out, though.
Yeah, but there's
But
something
that's a
almost
rich
meditative
snack.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
Pomegranate seeds be like $5 for 1 ounce, and it's just unreal.
Well, I mean, I get a pomegranate. I don't remember how much they cost, but it happens like 3 times a year when I feel like I have the energy to slowly
effort
peel.
snack.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then you
Mhm.
feel like you've earned it. But my
Yeah.
real snack is sour cream and onion chips always, forever, until I die.
Interesting.
Nathan?
I'm a
Snack?
savory.
The little sesame sticks. I eat those just constantly shoveling them in by the heapful.
What is that?
A sesame stick? Is that not a thing?
It's a thing.
not
It's
eat
a
these?
No, it's a
British
thing.
thing.
It's a thing. It's I've had them.
Yeah, you know what
They're
you
not
are.
very good, but I
I've
have
heard
had
of
them.
sesame seeds. I'm sorry, and sesame
sticks.
oil. I didn't know they could be sticks.
Oh, like the thing you when you're a small child. Yeah. I know.
Well, everything I eat is child food.
Is it child sized or just like do you eat like graham crackers?
Oh
and,
no,
like-
I don't do those. No, I
Okay.
don't like the.
Graham
I don't
crackers
like
are
the
good.
word graham cracker. Really?
They're good. It's like annoying that only children get to eat graham crackers.
Have you ever crushed a graham cracker into a chocolate pudding cup? Because that's good.
That sounds amazing. I should
Everyone's-
try that. Chocolate pudding cups are one of my snacks.
Yeah.
That's how I'm making
Rob?
it through.
Yeah, I don't know. I have boring snacking tastes. I get like little things of blueberries and eat those, and then after 20 seconds, they're completely gone, and it costs
Kitty!
$6.
Kitty! We've got
Look-
Kitty!
Most of my snack budget goes into feeding my little buddy here. Yeah, so
Oh,
the short list.
Dale.
I just remembered another snack: cotton candy grapes.
Oh,
Yeah.
holy fuck! Those are very
Those are
sweet.
so
Very
good. I've been eating so many of them whenever I can find them because they taste like cotton candy.
I don't understand.
The cotton candy grape.
Right.
They don't sound good, but they actually are good.
They're really good. Yeah.
You're
should
unsettling
try
how sweet they are, and then you're like, oh, actually, this is really good.
Yeah.
This
They
is the
aftertaste-
most foreign I have felt on this podcast between the sesame stick and the.
I think the cotton candy grapes are
Cotton candy
newer.
grapes.
Are new, like a
They're pretty
new,
new, yeah.
a new, hybrid grape or something.
Took them a while to get the different grapes to like each other enough to reproduce to make the cotton candy grape.
Oh, they're real grapes. They're
Yeah, they're real
not
grapes.
a candy.
No,
they're real grapes.
That would be gross. I
Cool,
agree.
cool, cool.
Well,
And
candies
that's
are also
also why-
delicious. So
That's also why raisins are bad, because they're the sad, shriveled corpses of once delicious grapes that someone could have enjoyed, and now they've been mummified and made into disappointing Halloween treats.
why
Can I-
does
can I-
everyone hate raisins? Raisins are great.
I'm gonna throw out a real hot take. Raisins and craisins are the same thing. Like,
No, they are
That is
not.
false.
they don't taste the same
Raisins-
because they're based on different fruits, but it's basically the same. The same
Then wait,
principle of
but-
things.
But what is food but its taste?
It's I don't know, like this is like disliking wheat fettuccine over like spinach fettuccine. You know, like I can see why you'd like one or the other, but they're really kind of the same thing.
No, they're not, because raisins have no acidity and they are an unwelcome surprise in every single baked good.
They're bad in baked goods. I totally agree. They're bad in cookies. It's
That's
the
why
worst
people
thing.
hype-
They're good in baked goods unless you're expecting it to be chocolate. and
Yeah,
then it's-
then you're like, why shouldn't it be chocolate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're good in oatmeal cookies.
No.
Raisins are good.
And
No.
that's
It is
why that's the thing with the raisins. People always have to like hide the fact that they're in there. That's why people don't call them raisin cookies, because they know that if they called them that, no one would fucking buy it. So you have to call them
No.
oatmeal
No.
cookies and then hope that there's no raisins in there.
Raisins are
No, it's true.
no. It's mostly oatmeal,
Mostly.
so it's called an oatmeal cookie.
That mostly is key.
Yeah. So somebody asked, which snack do you think will be most helpful in bringing about the socialist revolution? Which I think might be a signal that maybe people just don't care about our snack preferences, which I find.
I mean, I wouldn't care
Really
about
hard
snack
to
preference, but
process.
that's a good question. Nathan and I, one in Blueprints for Sparking Tomorrow, did talk about grapes presenting a sort of collectivist view
'Cause they
of
hang
the
together.
world, because they hang together so well, and they really support one another. And so I think grapes are,
Do they?
yeah, of course. Come on.
Unless there's like a rotten one in there.
And when they're
maybe.
crushed by pulverizing forces, they turn to alcohol. So,
Yeah, also good. So all of these things are good for the revolution.
Very nice.
Also, even
You
though
have to mention bread.
I like Triscuits are also a good snack for the revolution in the sense that they are sharp and could be used to slice our enemies.
If you really need your esophagus abraded. while you're
Chopping the heads
while
of the
behind the
bourgeoisie.
barricade. Yeah.
A guillotine made from Triscuits, I think, would
Using
work pretty
sharp
well.
Triscuits.
You could kill the enemies, your
You
class
do it
enemies
with
with
Captain Crunch
Triscuits.
too,
Captain Crunch. Wait, why?
Oh man, I haven't had Captain Crunch in so
because
long.
it's sharp.
Captain Crunch is not sharp, is
It's
it?
like razor blades on the roof of your mouth.
Huh. I don't know if I ever thought about that.
True fact.
It's his little sword.
I mean, the other thing that you could do is I am probably going to die from the amount of candy that I eat. And if you could incentivize all of the rich to eat that much candy and not have much better health and dental care than I do, then I think that could help facilitate the revolution also.
Okay, are we ready to talk about?
We are. Allegra,
Some-
tell us for our recurring segment, Wildcard, Audience Choice. Tell us what we are doing. In our final segment, Wildcard Audience Choice, we are going to take suggestions from the audience, both for tiny topics that we should talk about, large topics that we should talk about, questions that they have for us, or anything of that sort. Some things we won't answer because we're human beings and we get to do that. But at the top of the show, we asked you to share your suggestions of what our panel should talk about. The results are in. The people have spoken. Allegra will be the spokesperson for the people. And what did they say?
I'll try. I'll read off a couple. If no one wants to answer, you can just shoot me down. One of the first ones that we got at the top of the hour, though, was, does Nathan really think class doesn't matter that much? We knew that one was coming.
I don't think that Nathan's ever said that.
I think this is a response to a small snippet inside of that small 1 minute snippet from that one podcast from 2018.
All right, Nathan, answer the question. You have 1 minute.
Well, I think this person should pick up a copy of my book, Why You Should Be a Socialist, which was published in December of last year, which contains a long analysis in which I put class at the center of a socialist understanding of the economic and social world.
All right.
So
that was less
yes
than a
or
minute.
no?
Cool.
Class matters, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Other than your book, are there any other times that Current Affairs has ever talked about wealth or class?
Yeah, friggin' constantly. Jesus.
Yeah,
Friggin'
I've actually
constantly.
never heard of class. I don't know what that means. So
I think in general, it's a mistake to judge people by like a one snippet thing that you saw one time, or
Also,
like a single tweet.
That was a good podcast. Come on now.
Yeah, it was a fun. It was a fun, silly episode, and it's an episode in which people exaggerate a lot. There's this thing that's known as humor, and another thing called irony, which you might be familiar with, which people say something they don't necessarily mean. And if you just look at one little minute of something out of context, you might not know that. So it's really a good idea to actually look at the larger context of the thing that you're talking about and not judge somebody by like one thing that you saw one time, and also read a fucking book.
Also,
That's
we
my
might have
take.
meant it.
Yeah, well-
All right, Allegra, next one.
oh wait, I don't get to give my take about that?
Oh,
Fine.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, so the thing that was interesting to me about this whole thing and some of the like tweets that we've gotten since that kind of came up is this idea of the difference between somebody saying something, which I think it's fair. I mean, right? We're out in the world. People can like ask us any questions that they want. I think it's fair for someone to say like, hey, defend the statement that you made. Although I'm with Lyda, like it was sort of seemed like a lighthearted podcast, so I'm not really sure if that was in the spirit of it. But then there's the difference between taking that one snippet and then actually sort of internalizing that as, okay, Nathan believes X, when that's where I get kind of frustrated about like, okay, or you could look at the whole body of work. So asking someone to defend one thing that they said, I think is fair. If you're going to say it, someone can ask. You don't have to defend it. But then there's the difference between saying, oh, Nathan is a liberal or Nathan is blah because of that 1 minute clip. Not cool.
Can I add one more thing? Which is, I agree with that, Allegra, that you know people are full of multiple things. But part of the essence of that podcast was also that like there's a anarchist ideal, which is who really cares what people's like what all of the ideas that like whether someone is a Marxist or any of these sorts of things. That the anarchist ideal is you take the ideas that you agree with, you discard the ones that you don't. And so in some sense, like, look, I don't like Nathan has spoken very clearly on his ideas on class, but also in another sense, if your goal is to ask Nathan about those things, that's reasonable. If your goal is to understand like what ideas should you be holding in the world, well, you should take the ideas from Nathan that you like, you should discard the ones that you don't, and that should sort of be it. I don't know why you would have to take all of the ideas of one person or none of these.
People are either good or bad. It's the only thing they can be. They're cool or they're not cool. They're worth following on Twitter. They're not worth following.
Yeah.
That's it.
The cool thing bugs me, most likely because I probably am not cool.
No, none of us are cool.
Yeah.
Politics are not personalities. It's like I don't understand this.
I just don't think I'm made for like being online and Twitter, because like I can see sometimes and I'm like, oh, I guess you're like funny and cool because you said something really like cutting in a particularly succinct way. And on the one hand, I guess I can sort of respect that. And on the other hand, I'm crying inside, not cut out for it, not cut out at all.
All right, Nathan, close us out on this
Can
one.
I just say, on the whole flap about Marx, I got a section on Marx in the Socialism book, and I say that Karl Marx understood the world better than almost anyone else who has written about economics or society. And I called a lot of his work brilliant. I quoted from it. All I said in the book is that you shouldn't be a Marxist because it's weird to define your philosophy by the insights of one guy in the 19th century. You should just appreciate all of the brilliant things that he may have written, and you should discard things like when he kind of didn't pay attention to Bakunin's suggestion that if you don't prioritize civil liberties, you might end up and decentralization, you might end up with a cabal of people calling the shots in the name of the proletariat and beating people with the same stick, but calling it the people's stick, which was
At least that never happened.
Which was Bakunin's quote. But the thing is, I'm being told I don't appreciate Marx enough when I said that he was brilliant and everyone should read him, which I think is just like, what more do you want? Jesus Christ.
All right.
Then you feel like to a bust of Marx.
Maybe
I
make
have
out
a
with a
bust
bust
of Marx in my house. Like a bust.
I have,
Yeah,
I
you
have,
have to
I
kiss
have,
the bust.
I have kissed that bust. There is a
I've kissed the
picture
bust.
of me kissing that bust.
We need lots of
The
photos.
people need to see that picture.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
All right, the current affairs account after the show will tweet out the picture of me kissing the Marx bust.
Yeah.
That would be a
We are
healing moment.
We are sufficiently Marxist in the sense that we draw some wisdom from Marx, but we are not Marxist in the sense that being any personist makes no sense, which is not our point, is a point made by Graeber and Chomsky and a bunch of other people. This is a socialist libertarian magazine. This is a debate that's been going on literally for a very long time. So
And I'm so glad people are having it now because it's so important at this current moment to discuss. Of all the things that are going on, clearly, this is the fucking thing we should fucking be talking about.
I'm
how many
really
White Claws are
loving.
we in?
Yeah, I'm loving Lida's vibe. Robe discarded, White Claws ingested, cat cuddled. That's
All
really
right, what's
good.
our next topic, Allegra?
I like this one. Is the new liberal neoconservative alliance going to be short-lived or the new norm?
Rob.
I know the answer to all these questions. I can answer that in my sleep. New conservatives and liberals, man. I mean, internationally, there's limited difference. Will that alliance go on? I hope to God not. And people by now, though. I mean, with Trump, people are. It's amazing. Like liberals, rehabilitating George Bush. Anyone who isn't Donald Trump. Like so many liberal websites, like their big political weather vane now is let's go to Jennifer Rubin of the Washington Post. Yes, she's a Republican, but she doesn't care for that Donald Trump. We're supposed to just, like there's no political ideological distinctions between people anymore as long as they don't care for the rude president. So I hope to God not. It's an unholy marriage that's creating a bastard child of our society.
I think whoever Joe Biden picks as his VP will help us answer that question, and the sort of people he puts in his cabinet. I mean, he has hinted that he is open to having a bipartisan cabinet, which I think would be rather unusual. I think that usually when administrations change parties, you might keep some U.S. attorneys and you might keep some inspector generals, but for the most part, you staff with people who generally share your political beliefs. And so I think that whatever he does, if he wins and then lives through January 2021, so there are a lot of ifs here, it will at least determine like the fate of that alliance for the next 4 years. But predicting like beyond that, I think is sort of wild in those times.
I don't know.
Impossible.
I'm going to do the impossible and potentially just be very wrong. But I think that alliance seems to have been solidifying over the past 10 years or maybe more, potentially since like the late 90s. I don't really see like I think as inequality continues to grow and as sort of movements on more extreme ends of the spectrum continue to potentially gain power, I think the sort of forces that are aligned with elite or corporate power, which are like this sort of new conservative liberal alliance, I think it would make sense for that to sort of join together in a stronger fashion to combat sort of rising leftism or even potentially rising right-wing extremism, although it's not great at combating that. So I think, like, I imagine that regardless of how the election goes, that is the sort of new political alliance for right now that the left needs to battle against.
You guys are all so smart.
That was not true.
Use
We're all
the right
idiots.
words.
I'm like, I don't even. Sometimes I look at these sentences of like liberal neoconservative alliance, and I know what it means, but sometimes it just does seem sort of like word salad to me now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
like liberal means everything to everyone now. I don't even get it.
That's the problem is actually the definition of terms, and the thing I would throw out there is a question of like what constituencies do these people really represent? And the thing about like people like Jennifer Rubin is there's just like this teeny tiny slice of Republicans that are never Trumpers, and they have some degree of influence, but I don't know if they really represent anybody. The thing is though is when it comes right down to it, is are liberals willing to ally with out and out Trumpists? Are they going to be okay with that? And I think they pretty much will be. I think that's not really going to be an issue for them, unfortunately. But the things that like, you know, Nancy Pelosi stands for and the things that like a Trump voter is interested in are very, very different things, and that could cause some fractures.
Renix, Rob,
I was
Nathan?
going to say, too, for the bipartisan cabinet thing, like there is some precedent for that. Like, as I recall, Obama, in his when he first came in with that great wave of enthusiasm, didn't he keep Bush's defense secretary, Gates, or whatever his name was, Robert Gates?
Yeah.
Like, and that's, you know, Bush's defense secretary who didn't resign in disgrace. Like, he kept that one. And, of course, like Biden, too, they're both being advised by that walking colostomy bag, Larry Summers. So I don't hold out a lot of hope.
He was actually on our nuisance or nemesis list, but I didn't get to him.
Real quick though, nuisance or nemesis.
That was
Nemesis.
open and shut.
Yeah, nemesis.
Renix, Nathan, before we move on to the next.
I
I don't really have a on this.
Sorry.
The question was just about if the new liberal neoconservative alliance is going to be short-lived or the new norm.
Just to say, if I was Chomsky, I would point out that it's not new and that American militarism has always been a liberal project, from Woodrow Wilson to Lyndon Johnson to the liberals who voted for the Iraq War.
Great point. Okay, next one.
All right. All right, let's take two more.
Yeah, so I'm going to do one other question that we got, and then I actually was going to put Nathan on the spot and see if he wanted to discuss maybe his favorite question that he got at the AMA that he did. So last question from the chat was, it's November 2020, you live in a swing state, on the ballot is Trump and Biden, what do you do? I think this has been covered in a recent
Vanessa
podcast
has
episode.
Vanessa, I think, has a good breakdown of this, so I'm going to turn it to Vanessa on this.
Okay. Who to vote for? If you believe that your vote has to be moral and that it's not merely symbolic, then I think if you live in a swing state, and you are a member of the left, then I think it is probably more moral than not to vote for Joe Biden. If you live in a deeply blue state, I think you should do whatever the hell you want, because it doesn't matter. It's not going to swing anything. And my answer is probably the same if you live in a deeply red state, in that you're not really going to impact the outcome of the election. But if you think there's any chance that your state is going purple, then I think, in the aggregate, your vote is going to contribute to making it more blue than red, and at least at the presidential level. And of course, you should vote down ballot, because those the people representing you at the state, county, city level are going to have a more direct impact on your life probably than, at least more direct, more frequent impact on your life than Joe Biden or Donald Trump, oddly enough. I don't know. Do I say something else about this? Have I said other things about it?
That was
Good
good. Does
take.
anyone
That's a
does
good
anyone
take.
else?
Well, let me complicate the matters a little bit. So the full question was actually not just Trump and Biden, but Justin Amash is a libertarian and Howie Hawkins in the Green Party. And they asked, who do you vote for and why? And do you do a write-in? But that was good to just cover the Trump and Biden two-party question first.
Oh, yeah. I guess I don't care enough to even like take this question on.
Yeah.
It's like, it's your vote. I don't care if you vote green or libertarian. Like, this is between you and your gods, you know? Right?
Yeah.
I think it's a strange
Well,
question. Like
if
what
you
is your
thought that
goal?
the-
Are you
If you thought that
asking what
Green
the
Party
moral
had,
thing?
well, if you thought that the Green Party had like a chance of getting, enough percent to be, then I
Yeah,
would rather people vote for Green Party than the Libertarians.
but that's the thing. Like, we're not even in a position of determining like what your personal goal is, or like how you even view the value of your vote, right? Like, for some people, voting is deeply symbolic, and so
No, but
in
we're
that
supposed
sense,
to tell them the right answer.
even in a very red or blue state, I know a lot of people like that. They will, vote for Biden because they feel like morally they have a responsibility to make this, purely what is in the end just a symbolic gesture. But if you're trying to communicate a message to the Democratic Party that they just might lose you eventually if they keep, fucking things up like this, then you vote for who you think they might lose you to, right? And if you're an independent who could become a libertarian, then that's who you vote for. And if you're an independent who could become more Green Party-like, then that's who you vote for.
But of
I'm
course,
a
we would tell
lawyer,
you to
so
not be a
I don't have to
libertarian.
say yes or no.
As we have in many articles, we would say don't be a libertarian. All right. Well, sounds like that's the answer on that question. Before we go to your AMA thing, Allegra, I will say there is only one vote that matters in November of 2020, and that's the vote of which magazine you're going to purchase. And you should vote for Current Affairs and purchase a subscription for yourself and for your loved ones, and even for your enemies. And where can you do that? You can do that at www.currentaffairs.org/subscribe.
Every subscription is more cat food for Trotsky.
We are entirely member supported. We don't run ads, so we really need subscriptions.
Incredible butt in that camera view.
Yeah,
Incredible.
I'll censor for everybody. Okay, Nathan, I know what my favorite AMA question exchange was, but do you have one that you really thought people who are listening right now might want to hear?
Oh, I think we're probably thinking of the same one. The AMA was wonderful, and thank you to everyone the hundreds of questions that poured in, and I had to spend 5.5 hours continuously typing to respond to. But it kind of made me a little nervous because we got one which was from the marine biologist Nathan J. Robinson, who was doing an AMA soon, I think, and said that when he saw mine, he was kind of alarmed because he thought he had missed the date for his, and then he found out that I existed. Nathan J. Robinson, marine biologist, is famous for discovering the first giant squid in U.S. waters, and he asked me some question about coronavirus that I didn't answer, but the main thing is that I once did a bad thing to Nathan J. Robinson, marine biologist, because I took credit in the magazine for discovering the squid, quoting a news story that said Nathan J. Robinson discovered a giant squid. And I even ran an interview with myself in which I gave answers about how it felt for me to discover the giant squid. So it was a little weird running into him knowing that but I should have known eventually we would have to meet. Anyway, he was really cool about it and found the whole thing funny. So he's a friend of the magazine now.
Yeah,
now
Nathan got this comment from the other Nathan J. Robinson. He just said, "Oh no, and I laughed until I peed."
Can we talk about Nathan J. Robinson, the murderer?
I'd rather we didn't.
I think we must.
Well, Nathan J. Robinson, there's also a guy who murdered his dad, chopped him up into multiple pieces, and then hid the pieces inside something that he erected as a TV stand. So I think that you should do an interview as that Nathan J. Robinson for our next issue.
Hold on. He hid the pieces. Were they like desiccated or were they like rotting?
Nathan?
I don't have information on that. I think he put the pieces of the dad in Tupperware.
Okay. But was it like a fridge or was it like a TV stand?
No, it was just, I think they probably rotted.
Because that would smell. Like
He's a
Tupperware
gross-
doesn't.
I think this guy's kind of
sense
weird.
in.
Like,
Okay.
Why wouldn't he?
Oh, third person again. Interesting.
It's just so negligent. I've been watching this drug runner show called 000. It's really, really good. But one of the ways that the mob guys get rid of bodies is they feed them to the pigs. And so it's sort of like cycle of life, like the meat doesn't go to waste, and also there's no body to be found. I just don't understand why you would keep the evidence in Tupperware.
Maybe you don't have a herd of wild
Careless.
Yeah,
pigs.
some
Not
people
everybody
don't
does.
have access to pigs.
Or you're sentimental, you know.
Yeah.
You want to keep a little bit of that.
I get wanting to keep a little bit, but you should keep it in the freezer, obviously.
And
Where it
that's
keeps.
right. Yeah.
Not every murderer can be attached to the mob, Vanessa. It's a real classist distinction, frankly, between the murder. You know, some people got to keep the bodies in a TV stand. Not everyone
There's
has
like-
a farm they can go
Not
to.
everyone can
Freelance
afford
murderers.
Pelosi's $24,000 second freezer.
You
in
could
which
fit
you
so
could
many
even-
bodies in that.
So many bodies.
Should we do a video of like how you can properly store your body parts? Follow up video in the time of quarantine.
Okay,
You don't
I've written it
access to
down.
the things you would normally have access to because of the quarantine. So, no.
Mm-hmm.
A frequent joke Nathan and I have had is how if leftism should triumph is how absurd the magazine will get instead. We'll just do all the absurd shit that we've ever thought. So yeah, we do a video about how to store your cut off body parts. We do it.
It wouldn't be the most disturbing
No,
ad that we've put out, actually.
we put out the spider ad was weirder. But, like-
Spiders, Ron Paul is your gynecologist,
Oh,
how to hold your baby poster. We put out some really disturbing. In the first issue, there's a Nabisco ad that still haunts me.
Oh, the Nabisco.
Nabisco ad's so weird.
That was the ad that won me over to current affairs.
I lobbied very hard against us putting that ad in because it made me really scared.
oh boy.
But like, this is the stuff we bring about international socialism. We do more weird shit. That's what you get. That's what our future looks like.
On that
Nabisco.
note, this will be the formal end of the live stream. If you want weird shit, you should subscribe to the magazine and to the podcast. Follow all of these lovely people on Twitter or on other social media. And you should also buy Rob Larson's book. Rob, do you want to give a little pitch?
Yeah, if you're sick of your phone tracking you all over the earth and telling Apple about your secret hookups, and you're tired of bungled Iowa election apps that ruin our chance at social democracy, now's your chance to learn all about the dirty laundry of big tech with Bit Tyrants, which is out now, and you can get it in many quarantine-safe forms, which I recommend.
And Rob Larson is a professor of some sort of subject that we're not supposed to mention, but he has some credentials, so you should listen to him.
And for no other reason.
All right. This has been the Current Affairs video live show. Thank you all for joining us. I have been Oren, your host. Allegra, say goodbye.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining. We're testing out all these different platforms for live streaming, so it's great for you guys to be patient with us.
Renix.
Bye.
Oh, come on.
What? What do you want from me?
Put
Leda?
some gusto into it.
Now I feel very on the spot. Like I got to
Yeah.
do like a great goodbye.
Yeah, you
I'll
gotta
do
do
Yeah,
Queen
you
wave.
do. Like, there's no
Ah.
question about whether you need to do a good goodbye.
Let's Queen wave.
All right, Vanessa,
Bye.
Rob,
Toodaloo.
and our editor and chief himself from the Ghost News Station.
Goodbye.
Nathan Hudson.
Goodbye.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.